Welcome, I'm Giovanni Quattrocchi from Politecnico di Milano, and I'm going to present the work titled Federated Machine Learning as a Self-Adaptive Problem that I co-authored with Professor Luciano Baresi and Nicolas Rasi, both from Politecnico di Milano too. Let's start with some context. So if we consider traditional machine learning, clients usually send data to a centralized server or a cluster of servers. A model is trained in the server using user data, and then the clients can use the model produced by the server in inference mode. The problems are at least two. First, we have a privacy problem because clients or users have to share private data in clear to the server. And second, since users has to send data to the server, we have a problem of network overhead. To overcome these problems, an approach was presented called Federated Machine Learning, or simply FedML. And in this case, the training phase is not only executed by the server, but is mostly executed by the clients in order to reduce the amount of data shared with the server. So the training phase starts with a server that initializes a model with given weights or model parameters. The server shares this model with the clients, and the clients use local data to train a model locally. So each client will produce a different model, and they do not share the data to the server, neither to other clients. Then the produced local models are sent to the server that has the job of aggregating these local models and compute a new model, which is the result of the acquisition of the local models, and then this model is sent to the clients in order to be used for further processing. In fact, this process is repeated multiple times or multiple rounds until a given condition is reached, usually after a given number of rounds are completed. So this way, no user data is shared between clients and server, but only aggregated data, that is the intermediate models. So in the work, we advocate that FedML systems need self-adaptation. And this is because we have multiple complex goals to achieve. So for example, a system administrator could want to minimize the training time or minimize the resource consumption, maximize the model quality, for example, the accuracy, and minimize the use bandwidth. And these goals require automated techniques. In fact, we have to monitor and analyze a lot of metrics, so CPU and memory consumption, the battery level that is very critical for mobile clients, which are the de facto traditional clients nowadays. Then quality metrics such as accuracy and the loss of a machine learning model, and these metrics are computed in a federated fashion in order to not distribute data even for the evaluation, the training time, and the network overhead. For the planning and execution, there are different decisions to take. So first of all, at each round, the server should decide which clients to involve in the training. And this could depend on the availability of the device, the client resources, and usually a portion of the available client is involved in the training at each round. The data selection is also another critical factor, and this could be decided both at the server and the client side. And it consists in deciding the size of the training dataset to be used in each client at each round, and also which model weights to communicate with the server. Usually all the model weights are sent to the server at each round, but sometimes only a portion to reduce network latency and overhead. Finally, we should also allocate the workload and the resources, both at the server and the client level, which means that decide how many iterations or epochs should be performed by each client at each round. And this is done, this is important because the local training is an iterative process, and more iteration means more resource consumption, but also more quality in the model, usually. So this is a very important factor, and also we could also constrain the amount of resources to be used at each client, in each client at each round. So I just provide an abstract and high-level view on the problem, and in the paper we formulate the problem as a optimization problem. A second contribution is that we provided a prototype and an evaluation. So the goal of the prototype is to minimize the resource consumption given a constraint on the accuracy to be achieved in a given number of rounds. The problem that we tackle is the workload selection, so how many iterations to be executed at each round on each client, and we decide this in the server and not locally in the clients, and we use two heuristics, linear and quadratic interpolation. So the setup of the experiments is the following. We implemented the prototype in a custom simulation environment. Actually, there is no reference implementation for federated machine learning still. We built everything on top TensorFlow as a machine learning engine. We used 50 simulated clients, two real-world applications called MNIST and FashionMNIST that are used for classification, object classification, and we ran a total of 115 experiments. So the results are shown with these two charts. We show here an example of experiment with application FashionMNIST, and we use a set point for the accuracy equals to be 70% in exactly 10 rounds. So in the charts, the first chart is for linear interpolation and the second for quadratic interpolation, and we can see the accuracy curve in red, the one that is computed with the evaluation dataset, and in blue, the one computed with the training dataset. In green, with the vertical line, we have the target number of rounds, and in the horizontal green line is the target accuracy. So as we can see, in both cases, we get very close to the target accuracy, 70%, at round 10, but with quadratic interpolation, we reach exactly 70% at round 10, while with linear interpolation, we are a bit below the target, and this is because the accuracy is naturally not linear, and therefore the quadratic heuristic works better because it can approximate better the natural trend of the accuracy. So in conclusion, we have seen that federated machine learning systems call for self-adaptation. The control loops could be deployed in the centralized server and also in the clients. We built a prototype that uses a centralized control loop, and we use it for controlling the amount of iteration to be executed by each client at each round, and the results are quite promising. As future work, we want to tackle also the problem of client selection, also add some control loops at the client level, and finally improve the simulation environment.